Best sin is still the best sin. I don't think it was much of an argument beforehand, but it's definitely not an argument after this chapter. As we let off in the last chapter, Escanor, no powers, was going to stand up against his baby Endura. Obviously, he gets wrecked immediately. It's like slicing up his arm through his shield. No matter what attack Holy Knights are throwing at it, it's not able to do any damage. And it doesn't matter because Escanor is still standing, even with like claws and pieces of this creature going through it, like its tongue just piercing his body right through his shoulder and, ripping off his arms. He's talking about how even though this was painful, and they're asking, like, how does he stand? He's like, oh, well, if you've taken attacks like I have, maybe from Meliodas, that, you're able to know, like, true pain from attacks, even though that was his, buffed up version of himself. Escanor still felt the pain. He still remembered it, and he's still letting that kind of like drive him. And even like he gets his arm cut off, like no hands, no blade on there, no shield. He's literally just getting slashed up, reduced to like pretty much a bloody mess. And he's just happy to know that the sins treated him and his weaker self and his buff self the same this whole time. And then he had some good allies. He made some good friends, and because of that, he's been happy about his life, and he doesn't mind dying in the process. He enjoys like what he's had and what he's obtained. So I just like this because like the thing about Escanor that's different about all these other characters is Escanor's power was established. Okay, he has the pretty much a power that made him the weakest knight and then the strongest during the day. It's all relevant towards hours towards noon, and then obviously after that he grows weaker until midnight, and then it begins again, growing stronger throughout the time period. And we know of that. We know about his axe. We know about we knew about stuff like, oh, the one kind of like, oh, we knew that 12 or 11:30 was really powerful but not its strongest, so we knew that noon was in idea, the strongest one, and it was absurdly strong, as the one minute, pretty much invincible. And so it's always been like when Escanor beats somebody, okay, cool. Well, we understand he's OP. We know how his power works. With Bon, it was like Bon would get like power ups or just have abilities, like when he was like went against Galen, and he's just like, what was it, hunting festival, and like he's just like, yeah, I can pull out this dude's power 15,000 of his physical strength, and yet I didn't use this, in the fight against Hendrickson, even though I had it. It's like, sure, why the hell not? Why didn't he use this absurd power that he could, if he can drain up to like, what was it? Because Galen had like 30,000 power level or something, and he took half of it. So he should have been able to drain like all the strength from the Holy Knights and like put it in his body. And then what? Hendrickson was only like 5,000, so Bond could have just trashed him and just beat the hell out of him because he was already like what, like 2 or 3,000 at the time. So he could absorb that much. He would have won. And then you have like Merlin, who's just like, I have conveniently a spell in order to do this, or I can just make up a spell on the spot in order to beat this bad guy. Meliodas just gets power up after power up. Escanor has always been this guy that when he beats the big bad guys, it's because we know about his power. It's a higher level, or like get more techniques from the one. And he's got the best design. I think he's got the best personality. He's got the best ability. Escanor has always just been this, I think, the best sin for so many reasons. And then we get like all this nice kind of like character aspects from the weaker version of him, where we get these badass version, or the badass quotes and like feats from the bigger version, the buff Escanor. And here we just see like human Escanor, no powers, and he's just not letting anything stop him. He'll die on his feet, helping people, doing what he can. Because even with no powers, he still wants to protect others. He still wants to, do his duty as one of the seven deadly sins. He's very proud of being able to say he's part of the group. Very proud of being part of being part of a team of his friends that he really likes. And right when the Endura baby is gonna like come up to kill him, you have Maelstrom show up. Maelstrom, and yeah, Mael. I don't. Why I said Maelstrom. You have Mael show up. Wait, that is his name. They called him Mael. I don't remember. Mael. I always called him Maelstrom, but he shows up, heals him. I'm surprised because he healed his limbs too, because he didn't have either arm. Like, oh, he had his right arm in like shambles. Like it was like more like a spaghetti noodle thing. But he shows up, heals him, and he's talking to him, and he's like, I can't really defeat the Demon King, so I don't know what you want from me. And Escanor's like, I don't want you to do it. I want you to lend me sunshine again, and so I can go help and do what I can. And then the obvious explanation that we knew of, that Escanor is dying anytime he uses sunshine power because it's too much for his body. Which, again, that added an extra layer to Escanor, like the fairness of his power, because like it's so absurd, like for even for him, that it's killing him in the process. Like his level of OPness has always been understandable, whereas like turning Bond's absurd purgatory power up, Ania King's power up, the fact that Diane can still somehow fight and keep up with them, even though that she's like by far the weakest, it's always been kind of like with Escanor, it's been fine, and I've always liked that with Escanor. We've always understood like the setup around his character. I think he's had the best execution in a lot of categories with the with them. Also, the obvious like best thing about him is like during the time skip, like early in the series when it's like we haven't seen each other in 10 years. How are that we all gonna look different? Escanor just grew a mustache, and a good, proud gentleman's mustache, I might add. Escanor's just the best one. I just really like that last panel, or I guess like last panel transition, as you see like the small skinny hand, shaking with Mail. You can tell they get along. And then like the last one is like big buff Escanor, who's going to be going down like in his final moments, probably a hero, probably the best one. Because like how a lot of these are going to be. So under the assumption that Escanor is going to die, and so like Nakaba is going to want to have like a good Escanor moment. Like everyone else is going to beat their opponent, and like it's going to be like, oh, cool, heroic. But Escanor is just going to be like his last stand, which I think will be cool. And just imagine like him with some final badass attack, like as like the one he uses like a hand slash of like Sunfire, and then it's like a blade like carving all the way to the horizon, and maybe like it burns up part of a mountain that makes like a glow like the sun, and that's the last thing that Escanor ever does. That would be really cool. And it's like maybe he'll be the one to defeat the Endura. Like maybe the Endura will be like, okay, I was just playing the whole time. Gets buffed up, and then they're only able to finally win because Escanor's final moments. I'm hoping something like that. I want something very nice for Escanor, because like if he doesn't die, if he somehow lives, like maybe it's like it'll be like some kind of like a little ass pulley, but understandable. It's like, oh, because of his absurd like selflessness and like being linked to a grace for so long, he became pretty much like a pseudo member of the Goddess Clan, and he comes back essentially as like an angel. Kind of like the idea of like a character doing so much and then they die and they become like an angel, kind of like that. Like, oh, you were so pure and holy, you became an angel upon death. I think that'd be kind of fine. Like only for Escanor, because of like the things that like relate to him in the series of it, plus the fact that like I feel like he's earned it for sure, especially after this chapter. Or he dies, and it's like he's got to have a good out. He's got to have a good out. I will be upset if Nakaba like decides no, he's gonna die, but doesn't give him that final moment like of just like all around badass man that Escanor deserves. And I did really like this chapter. I thought this was really good, and it's a shame because like there's so many aspects of the series that I wish like were much more center stage. Like Arthur, I feel like Arthur would have been a much more interesting main character than Meliodas. Just in my opinion, I really like the way that Arthur was kind of being handled, and like you had this kind of like relationship with Merlin, where Merlin had this she's a thousands of year old like time stopped like witch, and she's got like this strong fascination with young boy to become the king of Britannia and Camelot. But whatever. With Escanor, I think it's always been really well done. I really liked Escanor's character, and this could be the end of his road, but a really nice one because this was a solid chapter. Next, we just got to see him in action for the final time of. I need one like really good looking the one attack, maybe like Divine Sword Escanor, or I guess we already saw what Spear and Sword. Maybe the last one is like Divine Presence, and he just kind of like gets unopposed and radiates sunshine around him and makes like a miniature sun that just melts whoever, like melts the Endura or some shit. Other than that, drop a comment below on what you thought about this chapter. Again, I thought it was really good. I liked it. And tell me in the comments again what you thought, and thumbs up the video if you would, prefer the like button and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But on that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.